Hi, my name's Leslie Yeat, and I'm excited to be here and share my experience with you all. Today, I will be talking about Kafka, but before I get started, let me tell you a little bit about myself. My entire life, I have been a classical pianist. I got my undergraduate degree at Florida State University and my master's degree in Manhattan School of Music, both majoring in piano performance. Soon after my graduation, I went to Flatiron School and graduated in October 2021. After 2 months of mass applying and studying algorithms, since mid-January 2022, I have been with Teladoc as part of the apprenticeship program. This is my first job in the technology field, and it has been quite a smooth transition despite the adjustment to the learning curve and dealing with imposter syndrome. Currently, I work as a backend engineer at a team called MTL, Message Transportation Layer. It acts as an end-to-end layer to use to receive, convert, and deliver all types of messages across the enterprise, so across Teladoc. Here, I'm quoting a very funny event that happened by Julian at Air France. He accidentally sent out a testing message to everyone at 10 o'clock at night. If any of you guys are interested, please check it out. I thought it was pretty relevant to what I'm doing at my team, so I added this funny segment. Some of the technologies we use are C#, .NET, Kafka, and RESTful API technologies. Prior to joining this team, I have not written in C#. I am still in the process of learning and expanding my knowledge in C#, but don't let this scare you. You may rest assured that Bootcamp surely trains you to learn things very quickly. So let's dive in today's topic, Kafka. This will be a joke for later. If you get this joke by the end of my presentation, it means I have succeeded in my teaching. If some of you were wondering about the name Kafka, yes, it is a homage to the writer who wrote that short story we all read in the past, The Metamorphosis. Here are the objectives for today. Before we learn about Kafka, it is important to understand the pub-sub pattern, publish and subscribe pattern, and the benefit that it provides. And then we will dive into learn about what is Kafka, the benefits and uses of Kafka, and I'll show you how I set up Kafka in C# and a short demo video of how my teammates and I figured or approached this particular ticket regarding Kafka. So let's start with a very simple two-process network. Let's say we have a sender and a receiver. A sender needs to talk to the receiver to exchange data. Sender should know about the address of the receiver. Both sender and receiver should agree about the common data protocol and the format. But what happens if we have multiple, 3 receivers for various kinds of processing? Let's take a look. Now the sender should know about all 3. Ooh, it disappeared. All 3 of the receivers. And we need to also know about their configuration. So this creates a very strong coupling between the sender and the receiver. So let's take it another step. What happens when there are multiple senders, multiple receivers exchanging the same type of data between them? Oof. As we can see, the management has become a lot more cumbersome and a little messy even. Each sender needs to know about each receiver. And if you add fault tolerance into the picture, it's just going to get more complex. So how do we solve this? How do we make this scalable? That's something that we as programmers always question and ask. Well, this is where the pub-sub pattern and the message queue can help. With the messaging queue, each sender only needs to know about the message queue and simply publish the message to the message queue. A lot of words, confusing, I know, and my face is covering a little bit, but you get the general idea. Sender of the messages are called publishers. They don't program the message to be sent directly to the message queue. Oh, sorry, to be sent directly to the receivers, right? And the receiver in this case are going to be called subscribers. All right, let me show you that. Now the receiver has become a subscriber to this message queue. When a new message appears in the queue, the subscriber is notified. Then it's going to go ahead and pull that message and use it and handle it however the person wants to, the developer wants to. The pub sub pattern only needs to know about the message queue, right? As you can see here. This is a pub sub pattern, also called publish and subscribe. But don't get overwhelmed by the terminology so much, since this will change one more time. Just remember the flow. Something makes the message, which is on the publisher, which is on the left side, and something reads the message, which is on the right side. Okay? This pattern of pub sub creates a very loose coupling between the two application components. So now let's look at the advantages. Let's deep dive into it. The pub sub pattern has many advantages. First, the pub sub are decoupled from each other. So it results in very easy management of the setup where publishers and subscribers can be added and removed without any changes to others in the network. Then it allows to scale the publishers and subscribers very easily. The message queue can handle the load. You can just add something here and then boom, and there. This will handle all the load. Now, next point, back pressure handling. This might be a new word for you guys. It was something new for me too. Message queue can also provide back pressure handling. If the publisher generates data in spikes, the message queue can act as a buffer zone to cache data until the subscriber can catch up and process them. And last but not least, reliability. Message queues can provide reliability through persistent queue data in tracking consumption of data. And this is where Kafka is a technology that provides all of these advantages. So what is Kafka? It's an event streaming platform. Events or messages represent the actual data that is exchanged through Kafka. And these two words are used interchangeably in the Kafka context. Kafka is an open source, so it is free to use and it's fairly easy to follow as well, as long as you follow their documentation. In Kafka's world, we have data publishers called producers. This is where I told you guys the term is going to change one more time. So now these are called producers. This is the part where they push the message to the Kafka, into the messages into the Kafka. Then there are subscribers called consumers, which listen and receive the messages. Producers and consumers are the standard terminologies in the Kafka world to represent pub sub pattern. So what are the use cases then? Well, there are actually a lot of use cases. It collects messages from multiple producers concurrently. It provides persistent storage of the messages received, and it also transports data across from all producers to consumers across networks. It provides tracking of message consumption by each consumer. This ensures delivery of messages even if the consumer goes down. It's one of the most popular messaging platforms in the world, as some, you can see all here. And there are actually more and more companies that are trying to use Kafka. They want to use it. It's something edgy. It's something hip. So now let's look into how to set up Kafka. This is the part where I'd be using C#, but don't worry so much if you don't understand C# or any of the code. Try to paint a big picture of Kafka. Try to understand the flow. This is a Kafka course and not a C# course, okay? So I used Brew to download Kafka, but you can follow their documentation if you'd like. They're very detailed. Once that is done, we need to start our Kafka server of your choice. I picked 9092, and then we're going to generate something called a topic. What is a topic? Well, it's a category used to organize messages. Each topic has a name that is unique across the entire Kafka cluster. Messages are sent to read from specific topics. In other words, producers write data. to topics, and consumers read data from topics. Pretty similar. Think about the diagram. I will show you right here. Try to digest this. In this example that I will show you, I am going to be building a C# application which produces and consumes messages from this Kafka cluster. Then I'm going to take a step further, sending an actual SMS message when I consume that Kafka message. So over here, I'm going to take it another step and send an SMS. But you're going to see this in the demo video later. Just understand the white part right here. I know I'm covering it right now, just this flow. All right, now let's look at some of the code. So here is a sample code of the producer console application. Just pay attention to the pink magenta arrows. You don't need to read everything so carefully. I know my head is covering it right now. But over here, you can see that you see the host number that I set up earlier. We are listening to that local host server and at the topic that we set up, which is this long string right here. And then we are instantiating a producer. This syntax will look awfully close to the consumer code. So let's look at the consumer code very quickly. Same thing here. Focus on the blue arrows. You can see that the host is specified and the topic name is specified here. Now I'm going to briefly change and show you guys the demo. Let me get things set up real quick. So before I set up the demo, let's go over what I'm going to do it. Let me break down my task actually. My teammates and I are doing several things. First, we are going to read messages from the Kafka topic. How do we do this? Well, we just went over it, right? The producer produces a message to the Kafka topic. Then the consumer consumes that message from the Kafka topic and we will handle it. In addition to reading the messages that we receive from the producer, we are going to parse and make it a basic phone number validation. And then we send the message through Vonage vendor to external number. Vonage is a cloud communication provider. Its service provides a message preference like phone numbers and programmable messages, calls, and notifications. If there are any errors, it will show on our console application. If it succeeds, we will get a successful response as well as a text message on my phone. So let me back out a little bit. The last part that I'm covering is the Vonage vendor, as you can see. So take a look at the diagram, very similar. We just have this one part that I'm covering right now. Vonage. This is something new. So I have pre-recorded this demo to avoid any last-minute failures. Let me minimize that, and I'm going to get the video out. I will show you the success video. So on my terminal, I am running the producer code, which will then print the message to the consumer console app. Look at the bottom, boom, we have we set the results as success, right? And you can also see the message to hello from console, smiley face. Now, check this timestamp. It's about 10:27, right? I should have gotten a text message at this time on my phone. Let's look at something that when it fails. What happens when it fails? I can go ahead and skip. You can see that I am sending it to a very dummy number, right? Just a random invalid number, and it is going to fail. That's the purpose of this. And it says SMS request failed. Status 29, whatever that status is. Well, it says it here. Non-whitelisted destination has been rejected. And it also says no response. Please check for any errors or try again. Something that we as developers always need. We love friendly error messages. So let's look at the code one more time. All right. Now, focus on the parameters. in the producer code right here, I hard-coded my message contents, right? And my phone number as in the receiver's phone number. You can see that. Very simple. And on my consumer code, right here, as the Kafka consumes the message, I am instantiating a new message right here, this big chunk, by a method that was already written somewhere else. From there, I'm populating my parameters with the sender number, receiver number, text contents, like I'm sending this object in there. As a result, I am able to receive this text message on my phone. And if you look at the timestamp, it is 10:27. So this is all I have for Kafka for today. But before we depart, if I'm in any position to supply advice, I'd like to share some of these few. And here we go. So these are some points that helped me during my first job, like first month at Teladoc. So don't underestimate the architecture. Personally, it made it easier for me to understand my task once I had a better idea of the architecture and how my team fits in with others. This is something I struggle. This is something I struggle with still. Documentation versus tutorials, where there's so many. There's a plethora of information out there about any languages, good ones and bad ones, in my opinion. Try to be pickier and smarter about the videos and resources you find. Make sure they're not outdated and is supported by your coding editor or even your computer if you use an M1 Mac. I don't particularly enjoy reading documentations, but sometimes they are the best way to solidify your learning, especially when you're trying to learn a new language at your first job like me. Next point. Balance. Don't fall into the rabbit holes trying to understand everything before you start coding. Sometimes a few lines of code written will get you far enough to understand the concept. And this is another tricky thing. Try to develop some instincts. This was the hardest to me since, especially during the boot camp, since I didn't grow up being so close to computers. I had no instincts whatsoever, so I had to train myself of why things would break and how my code would affect other parts of the code. Try to read your errors more carefully. I cannot, this is so important. The error is telling me exactly what to do, and for some reason I'm blinded by the stress, seeing the error, and I dismiss this very easily. So try to think critically and creatively. Last but not least, it also just doesn't hurt to just turn it off and back on again. Somehow that just states the state of your application, and it works. It's magical. So this concludes my presentation. Hope you get to come across this topic in your future jobs, and good luck and thanks for joining us today.